Alright guys, HyDra here, and I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. With the World Cup just a couple of days away, Scrappy had better be careful of his language because of these etiquette and integrity rules that currently exist, it seems, around this event. But also Scrappy revealing that yes, he was fined this season, at least in some parts. Not as much as some have speculated that Scrappy was fined, but yes, the CDL are still stepping in and dishing out punishments to players who say things that are technically against the rules. Very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new, as always, I greatly appreciate it. I'm not going to comment on Shotzzy's US state quiz because it wasn't the best. On Crimsix real quick, I believe his season is now pretty much done, so he raced at Road America this weekend, and this graphic goes pretty hard, I'm not going to lie, if it wants to load for me. Ian Crimsix Porter, round 6 of the championship or whatever. Day 1 on the sprints, he won it. Day 2, he won it, and then day 3 they did an endurance challenge and he won that as well. So it was, P1 across the board for Crim. He was on pole, he won both races, and he weren't even close. This is the key point though for Crim, because if anyone's been watching this series or following the series, it's not the most competitive championship Crim is racing in. But to be fair, the second place driver in this category is Chloe Chambers, who is a Formula 1 Academy driver for Haas. So she's a very solid driver, and Crimsix has obviously been beating her. So, but you know, most of the other competitors in the championship race are just rich guys that have a lot of money to put into this stuff. Crim's, you know, obviously found a way to make this work. But Crim wants to take the next step, right? So like, he's not, obviously he likes winning every race, but he's not necessarily going to be happy winning every race because he's like, okay, where's the competition? You know, like, let me race back to Verstappen or whatever. So this is the point, that when Crim is racing on these weekends, I think there's like pros that are there to help coach the drivers and stuff like this. So Crim's really measuring his lap times and his performance against the professionals. And he, in the endurance challenge that he did on the final day, he was matching lap times with those pros. So kind of indicating that he might be ready to take the next step, as it were. And well, we'll see what it goes. I don't really know. Obviously, Crim's ambition is to win Le Mans one day. So, I mean, yeah, wishing him the best, but he's been killing it obviously lately. Just quickly on the top 20 players, I think I said yesterday that this didn't include champs. It did include champs. What didn't include champs was the postseason awards. So a bit of a mix up there. But yes, this voting on this was, I literally did the voting after champs. I don't know what I'm talking about. But anyway, these were the overall top 20. And I think we got these about right, to be fair. It's interesting looking at some players that you might have expected to be higher or lower, possibly. The top 4, I think, were relatively clear-cut in terms of who the top 4 were. But after that, you could go a number of different directions. I think Cellium was... If you'd have told me at the start of the season Cell would be 8th, I'd have told you I'd have been surprised by that, like being that low. So interesting to see that. Certainly Drazah above Cell was, I think, a surprise to many. And I think if I had to give like an honourable mention here, I'd probably say someone like Estriel, really, because I feel like with aBeZy and Gwyn getting 14th and 15th, Estriel, to me, especially given what happened at the end of the season, was in the conversation to be Rookie of the Year. But, you know, he's not even on here, right? So I feel like Estriel could have got a nod somewhere, but it's difficult to say who he should get a nod over, because was Estriel better than Nero? Not really. And, you know, was he better than some of these other guys? It always depends how much you value team versus individual performance levels, how much you value LAN versus online. It's always difficult to say. But, yeah, Simp was our #1 performer of the season. Speaking of attach, you got number 17. He actually was talking about Mac. So Mac, a player that Sib and Pred and the guys that team with him on Seattle Surge were very fond of on his time on the team. Of course, Mac was even on the New York Subliners for a couple of years during that Modern Warfare 19 season, then going into Cold War as well. So attach got to experience a bit of that. And this was rumoured, I think this has been known, that Mac was linked to that Vegas team before the start of this most recent season. But then he decided not to compete. There was some, you know, personal family stuff going on, and he decided to step away for a while. And there are rumours, however, that he's going to be coming back. I think a couple have said that Mac is looking for a turn here for Black Ops 6. So that's pretty exciting. Hopefully that turns out to be the case. And yeah, Tatch says that, yeah, he would have been on Vegas this year had he competed. So... you do wonder with players like Elite, for example. Obviously, he's had a bit of a rough couple of years, but if he is coming back, which it seems like he is, over all the things we've talked about over the last couple of days, then the likelihood is someone's going to give him an offer somewhere, right? And probably the same for Mac, but when there's only 48 spots in the league, it is pretty tough to say. but I will say it's quite likely that Matt comes back. He seems to be pretty highly rated by many. Obviously, he didn't have a good last season on Seattle Surge back in Modern Warfare 2, really, but, you know, there were lots of talk about whether they should have dropped him for Gwyn, for example, mid-season, which maybe in hindsight was the play and what they potentially should have done, because Pred was unreal last year for Surge, and yet it didn't really translate into anything. Another potentially somewhat underrated player, I just saw some talk about this over the last couple of days about CleanX, really, like where he looks all-time. Is he underrated in the all-time conversation? Because, you know, a very fast, aggressive, impressive player. Like, when he's on, he is arguably the most impactful player in the game, certainly right up there. And you can count the kickoff if you want. I personally do, because it was a LAN tournament with all of the teams at the start of Vanguard. And if you do include that, then every single year of the CDL, he's won an event with Toronto Ultra, which nobody else has done. And he's definitely reaching that conversation of, you know, being the best player in the league without a world championship ring. But, you know, whether they can get there is another question. And obviously there has been this tendency of this Toronto team. Yes, they do win events, but they can sometimes just giga collapse in grand finals. We've seen that before. And, you know, if CleanX can kind of get over that hurdle, then I think we're in for a different conversation. But of course, his teammate Scrappy also in that conversation about who's the best player not to have won a ring, especially with the way that it went this year, with Pred getting one, and with obviously Dashy was the big one getting one this year. That put a lot of things to bed. Shotzzy already had one, Kenny already had one. But speaking of Shotzzy, Scrappy and ZooMaa, we know that they were kind of getting into it the other day over Shotzzy's playstyle. We're not going to talk about that again. What we are going to talk about is potentially Scrappy getting fined over a couple of things. They're talking about some leaks for Black Ops 6. They're talking about the maps for this game not being the best. Look, once they added the Rios, the Vistas, the 6 stars, it's definitely been better, but most of, you know, certainly the original maps largely didn't play well. I think Karachi Control, to me, maybe a bit of a hot take, but I think Karachi Control from most of the year was actually really quite good. I do still look back at the early part of this game, though, and say, like, why did they change some of the hardpoint rotations on Karachi? It never really felt necessary. I think the game was probably worse off for it, to be honest. And, you know, Invasion, I never liked that map, really. Part of it, I think, is because the pros find it just kind of boring to play. So, anyway, they're not so happy with the game. Scrappy made, despite the fact that Scrap was unreal at this title, he definitely made his points clear a few months ago. I think there was a tweet he made on the 29th of February that we'll see in a second, where he criticised the developers of the game, and that was the tweet that got him cooked.
About Black Ops 6, like all the leaks and shit. What do you guys think about it?
Recently, past couple of years, I've never been excited for a new COD to come out. I mean, like, what's the point, bro? Yeah, like, what's the, like, my expectations for COD now are horrible, so.
I haven't had
Bro, Black Ops 6 looks sick, though.
Bro, we said that this game looks sick.
No, I haven't had.
Nah,
this game
didn't
is
look like
good
Black Ops 6.
outside.
Bro, we said this game looks sick. No?
No,
100%. I agree. I agree. I actually think there's so much potential, but we wasted all the potential on these shit maps that we play. Bro, these are the most. These maps have been boring from the first week everyone played them. Everyone knew they were boring the first week. Bro, if we've got maps in like 6-star Vista from the rip at every map, this game would have been so fun to play. But like, bro, no one wants to watch fucking bro. And then they switched them, bro. The new Karachi HP is dog shit.
Oh, it's infinitely worse than the
Bro,
old one.
no bullshit. The first Karachi of like this year, of like in the beginning, was one of the best HPs I've ever played.
Yeah, it was
Like on any game.
How much did you get fined, bro?
Bro, someone came in my chat and said there's a Reddit post that said I got fined 30 racks across the year. Bro, I've been fined $1,000.
30 racks, and I was calling the CDL dog shit.
I've been fined $1,000 for everything that I've done. And the reason I got fined was not for anything I said, but more for the tweet that I said everyone needs to be fired. Who made this game?
Bro, I used to get fined, and my fine was more expensive than $1,000. What the fuck? And our prize pools were 10% of y'all's fucking prize pool. So how the fuck are you only getting fined $1,000?
I don't know, because they're cool about it.
They low-key agreed with him, just like had to send these.
So I believe this is the tweet in question here from Scrappy from the 29th of February this year, I think is when he tweeted this out. 28th, 29th, something like that. Whole Activision team that made this game needs to be fired and fined immediately. Of course, this tweet now deleted because, well, apparently he got fined for this. Pretty funny, right? Because back in the Modern Warfare 19 days, the CDL was first coming into play and we had stuff like this. I was loving it at the time. Talking about Octane, tweeted all sorts of stuff. And, well, this was the series of tweets that Octane made back in MW19, which got him fined quite a lot of money. Now, I'm not exactly sure how much he got fined that season. the feeling was apparently he got fined more than he made in prize money that year, because Surge were trash. They made barely any prize money, even though Octane was good. They made like 10k prize money, so like I think 2k of that was to Octane, and I think he got fined more than that over the course of the year. Such as for tweets like this, to be fair. Pray for Octane's bank account, said quote at the time, probably got fined for all of them. So Octane knows a thing or two about getting fined by the CDL. But to be honest, I thought that those days were somewhat over. I mean, Scump got fined for playing Raid Shadow Legends in the off-season and a couple of other things as well, I think, which is just ridiculous. And actually one of the reasons why Scump and Hex brought that lawsuit against the CDL, which I'd actually completely forgotten existed until right about now. I'm not really sure has there been too many updates on that, really. We know that it went to arbitration. I'm not yet sure if that lawsuit is like done with arbitration, i.e. it's a done deal, they've settled out of court and, you know, GG to both parties, or whether there is still more to come on that. We haven't heard much in months, have we, really, about that whole Hex Scump lawsuit thing. Maybe it has now fully been resolved. But back in 2020, the MW19 season, that was when the CDL were most on it, as it were, in terms of like, okay, we're going to make this a proper competitive league with very high integrity. The players are going to, you know, basically toe the line. I think they relatively quickly figured out that don't really work here in the Call of Duty world. The players are going to say what they want, and, you know, even back in, it was Cold War, right? The sensitivity training for Cammy that Toronto made him do. And generally speaking, that has changed over the last few years. And now the teams and the league are more willing to be like, all right, you know, whatever, we've got to embrace the esport to some degree. But apparently you can still get fined for stuff. It is interesting, though, what Scrappy says. It doesn't seem to matter what he says to opponents, right? He can talk trash. He can call out Drazah. He can say crazy stuff. He can, you know, tweet whatever he likes about personal stuff compared to other people. He can throw up the birds. He can point at someone in the crowd and say whatever he wants. That is all fine, and I agree, that should all be fine. I got no problem with that. But it's when he criticizes the game, that seems to be the problem, right? So when we're talking about the state of the title, and when Scrappy says that basically the game is terrible and everyone involved needs to be fired and potentially fined as well, that's when it crosses the line. He got fined $1,000 for this tweet, apparently, which is, maybe that's like the standard fine. I'm not exactly sure. So even this is from Octane back in 2021, when he was like, yeah, I actually made some prize money this year and didn't get fined, which was an absolute W season for him at the time. So yeah, what do you guys think about the whole situation, right? Because I didn't ever see the post that said Scrappy got fined 30k, but you know, maybe that was posted and then deleted because it wasn't exactly true, I don't know. But Scrappy says, like, I weren't fined 30k, but I was fined a bit for calling out the developers. So it just seems to be a weird line that the pros can't walk. They can say pretty much whatever nowadays, but if you criticize the game too strongly, that's where the problems start to creep in, especially if you go to an extreme extent. Criticizing the game should be fine. I guess if it's not constructive, then the league are going to step in and say, hey, you owe us some money. Whether they should or should not be able to do that, of course, that's an entirely different question. Speaking of scrap, though, just one final thing to close out the video with. I thought this was quite remarkable, really. We have talked about this over the last few days, the fact that the top 4 players in this year's title are actually pretty clear-cut. They play for 4 different teams, and in many ways they play 4 slightly different roles. Yes, Simp and HyDra play a similar role, but Simp was actually going to be the flex for FaZe if they got pred, as they thought about doing going into Modern Warfare 2, I think it would have been. And, you know, we've talked about this whole Simp to the flex thing before. When I first saw Simp play at an unbelievable level way back in Black Ops 3, and mentioned it again, he was using the M8 a lot of the time. He was often like an AR player, so he can run it, and he would be unreal with it. Scrappers, I mean, this would be such a fast team. I don't even want to imagine how good this team would be. But if this team was to form, it's incredibly difficult to imagine what other team you could possibly make to actually take these guys down. But very much enjoyed your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.